All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is the show for the courageous people who are meant for more and are willing to do something about it. This is the place for you to find good franchises. So on today's show, we are going to be explaining to you how to buy a franchise. And we're even going to give you an example of some of the items that would be on a franchise evaluation checklist. And, as we were thinking about this and preparing for the show, we thought it would be a little bit fun to do something different with the episode today. So what we're going to do is we have designed a made-up scenario of a franchise buyer who needs help with exactly the same thing, evaluating a franchise. And so this isn't one particular person. It's really a combination of situations that we regularly encounter as we're helping people to find good franchises. And so what we're going to do is we're going to help this buyer to find a good franchise. So I'm going to start off by describing this buyer for you so that you get an opportunity to learn him and get to know him. So his name is Rob. You like that name? I like that name. So Rob grew up with his dad working in a factory, and his mom was a homemaker. And so you can imagine that he really worked hard. His family values the tenacity, the effort that you put into doing a job well. And that work hard gene is all throughout their family. And he's been kind of on his own. In high school, he started working different construction jobs and in the summer to really start paying for his college because he had a dream of going to college. And so he did. He made it. He paid for his own college all the way through. And once he got out of school, he landed a job. And with his street smarts and his hard work, he worked his way all the way up to an executive position at a company that was in Michigan. And so my experience with someone like this is that he can handle a lot because he has this drive and this commitment to take on a challenge. And then he knows that he's going to be able to figure it out. Right? Does it sound like a good guy?
So far, so good.
Now, I like this kind of guy because they're successful, but they're also really grounded, and they just have a toughness about them, which I think is really great for a business owner. They've achieved a lot in their life, but they're also really humble, and they're humble about what they've achieved because they understand where they came from and how much effort it was to make their way up. So they're just all around great people. So it's wonderful to meet people like that. But Rob has a problem, and this one, it keeps him awake at night. And so although Rob has completely committed himself to his company, he has been working really hard for them. He's been putting up with all the corporate politics and, climbing the ladder step after step. And because of his hard work, his effort, his street smarts, and his sheer will, he's been able to outwork the most of them and really make a name for himself in his company. But things have been unstable with his company. And so the direction he's finding with the leadership is really unclear. There have been a lot of rumblings about another round of layoffs. And he's not sure if he's going to be one of those next groups of layoffs. And it's not anything to do with his results or performance. It's really a decision that's being made to cut cost. And his department happens to be one of those costs. So that just feels very disheartening to him, especially after everything he's put into it. But he's a tough guy, so he's not gonna just let that take him down. He's got to think, what is he going to do about it? What's he going to do next? And so he's considering all of his options. And one of them is to be a business owner, right? But he's definitely, even though he's tough, even though he's strong, he's definitely scared about the risks. And so there's this internal hesitation. And he's always wanted to explore this dream of business ownership. But that security of the paycheck and, working for a big company with the big benefits, it's always kind of stopped him from exploring those options. But he can't deny that there is this kind of itch or draw towards the freedom and independence of business ownership. And so he would just love to have more control and to actually be able to make money for himself instead of working so hard to benefit his employer. And yes, of course, he's grateful for his job and everything they've done, but he also knows that he's really meant for more and that he has achieved a lot for other people, and he thinks he can do it for himself. And so he's thinking, maybe now is the time to finally take the chance and to start looking. But then that fear creeps in because he's never been a business owner before and he knows the odds are against him. But he wishes that there was just some way to make this happen, some way for him to ensure that if he started the business, that it would be successful. But he can't know that for sure. So he's also used to working with a team. And so he knows that he likes that experience of having the support of a team around him. So being totally out on his own, it just feels way too risky. And so because of that, he's been toying with the idea of becoming a franchise owner. So he's interested in franchising. It seems less risky, but he really doesn't know that much about it. It's like, if he could just figure out the right information, then he could seriously change his life for the better. But what is that right information? He needs help. And he doesn't even know where to start, really. So what he did is he went out on the internet and he just decided to jump into research on his own. So he went on the web and he started researching. So he sees these lists of these top franchises. And there's a few of them that seem interesting. So he reaches out and he contacts them. And the next thing you know, he's drawn into the sales process of a few of these franchises. And he's trying his best to collect the information and get the research, but somehow it seems strangely difficult to get any real insights about the information that's going to help him make a good decision and see how much money he's going to earn and what is the real opportunity for him. And then he gets called by a good franchise broker. We call him one of the good guides. And then he realizes that he's been doing his research all wrong. And so I'm going to pause here. And I'd like to introduce you to our good guides and our expert franchise panel today. So first, we have Eric Reese. Hello, Eric. And Eric is a partner at Lathrop & Gage, and that is a law firm with over 500 attorneys. They're nationwide, and they represent hundreds of franchisors. He was the 2020-2021 Best Lawyers in America Award recipient. He's also a CPA and business advisor, as well as an independent business owner. So lots and lots of quality experience to provide and share with us. Then we have Amanda. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, happy to be here.
And Amanda is a national franchise trainer. She's an award-winning franchise broker, and she's actually worked in the international and immigration space, really helping do everything from assisting immigrants to select their franchise, obtain their visas, build out those locations, and run and manage all of those locations all over the country. So she's very good at helping people find good franchises. And then we have Karen Unger with us today. Welcome, Karen.
Hi there.
So Karen is the president of Affinity Franchise Partners. And so she's also a certified franchise broker. She's highly decorated with a long, long list of awards, but here's just a few to understand her quality of character and what she's achieved in her professional career. She was Entrepreneur of the Year through Chamber. She's been awarded the Innovator of the Year. She's also been awarded Technology CEO of the Year. She's been awarded Businesswomen of the Year as well. So a lot of awards, and that's only a fraction of them that we had time to present here today. So she's a wonderful resource for us today. And then I'm Sabrina Wall. I'm a national franchise trainer, the CEO of the Franchise Brokers Association. I have owned and operated or managed over 27 franchise locations, both for myself and for my investors, with 4 different franchise systems. I'm also the 2020 CEO of the Year recipient. So welcome, Eric, Amanda, and Karen to the show.
Thank you.
All right. So we've got this world of franchising. We know that it's vast. There's over 4,000 franchises out there. It's complicated. There's a lot of complications because you're really marrying the franchise and the franchise owner for that life of that contract. And yet it's also very transparent. So when Rob has good information that he has going into this research process, we know that good results are going to come out of that. And so what he's missing right now is a good bench of people to help him through so that he can get his good business. Karen, does this story sound familiar to you?
It certainly does. This is a big decision for anyone. It puts their personality, their time, not to say their savings on the line. And there really isn't a Rand McNally map that you can go and buy from Kindle that says, here, take this road. So it's really important to know which questions to ask. And I think that's one of the most important things a potential franchisee can learn and to get help with from a good team behind them.
That's right. All right, Eric, I know that this story hits home for you, and I know you've experienced that experience of working with something or someone or working with a company, and it kind of has the weight of having these golden handcuffs. So why do you think they call it the golden handcuffs?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have maybe a bit of a false sense of security in where they're at, but I do understand these golden, or most people have brass handcuffs. I don't know why they call them gold, right? But average is very comfortable, right? Having that paycheck every week or every other week or whatever it is very comfortable. And we build our lifestyles usually based upon what we get paid, right? And we know it ain't great. It's not shabby, but we've learned to work with it. And so one of the jumps that an entrepreneur needs to make is understanding that while there's no safety net, there's also no ceiling. And Sabrina, we've talked at length about this, what I'm personally going through in starting my own law firm after 37 years in large law firms. And that no safety net thing kept me up for weeks. As you know, you were worried about me. I was losing all color in my face. I was not getting any sleep, walking around like a zombie. And then all of a sudden, it's that no ceiling thing that really got me excited. And really that's how to break out of, for me, this chain of the brass handcuffs is no more average, but no more ceiling. And that, for me, that's the most exciting part.
Oh, that is exciting. That is really exciting. And I think it's going to be exciting for our friend Rob as well. Amanda, when you're thinking about Rob and what he was going through, what do you think he did wrong when he was attempting to do his research?
I don't blame him for it. It's definitely, most people go through the same research strategy when they have no idea where to start. But if you actually think about it, when you're looking for a way out or you're looking for any type of business, the first place you're going to go is Google. So you're going to go to Google and you're probably going to research the hottest franchise out there, top franchises in my area. So all of those keywords are going to pop up. And the analogy that I use is just like media, just like the internet, there's always going to be fake news, right? So fake news, false advertisement, marketing, tons of marketing that these franchises are putting into getting traction to get a lot of these candidates. So Rob is really going through this list and he's thinking that those franchises are on the top of the list, so he may have a greater chance of success because of that. And unfortunately, that is a misconception. There are a lot of things that he needs to take into consideration. So that is really the number one mistake, is thinking that just because you've heard of the franchise and just because it is sitting on a top or hot list out there, that it means that it is a good franchise.
Yeah, a lot of those lists are just how many they've sold in a year, which isn't really a true indication of success, because they can be a churn and burn franchise where they're just selling, but they're not really supporting and keeping their franchise owners. Good, really good point. And I know that when we go through this process with candidates, we're always saying that with the right tools and teams, you can be exceptional. And so what we've seen is that when you partner with people that are complementing your weaknesses and allowing you to accentuate your strengths, well, collectively, all of your strengths as a team are maximized. And so the trick is really getting the right team to support you. And so if you have a franchise team over here that isn't the right team, well, you're not going to have the level of success. But if you have a franchise over here that is the right team, then you're going to have an incredible experience. So that team alignment is really important as well. And the tools, the tools part of it is just that, the system, you want to have a system that allows your profit to incrementally get better year by year. So what you do is you align with the right team, then you generate a certain amount of business, and then you start streamlining and organizing and maximizing that business so that you get better and better at the operations, and you're not having to do as much. The systems do more work, and that gets easier and easier over time and makes you have more equity in the business and better systems. And all of that allows you to have the right tools and teams so you can be exceptional. So if we had Rob sitting in front of us right now and we wanted to help him to become exceptional, what do you think we should help him with? We know that he wants to act on this franchise venture, but all of his savings would be at risk. And we know that he really only has one shot to get this right. And we know that there's a lot of research that has to be done in order to actually assess the merits of the franchise that's going to match him, that's going to match his market, and it is right for him. So Eric, do you think that if Rob was able to get the right tools and teams and ask the right questions, could he actually predict his success better?
Sure. Yeah. So due diligence is the number one thing that a prospective franchisee should be doing to get into a franchise business. Sometimes due diligence has its challenges. With a newer franchisor, you may have fewer franchisees. But one thing that the government did right in the disclosure documents that you'll get as part of investigating a franchise is they require the franchisors to list their franchisees and their telephone numbers. And Sabrina, we've had a discussion, a little odd discussion about that this week, about a particular franchisor. But the reason why they have to list them is you're supposed to call them. And when you buy a franchise, you're buying a system, right? The franchisor made the mistakes that you don't have to. That's not a sales pitch. That's good franchising. They've made the mistakes that you don't have to. And so how you test that and how you test the other disclosures in the FDD is you call the franchisees, the people that have gone before you, and you look for answers to things like, how much money do you make? That's a pretty darn good question, right? And you're looking for not wild variations, but you're looking for franchisees who believe there's a system, follow the system, and have similar results. Obviously, differences in geography, differences in market, and differences in hustle. Not everyone works as hard as everybody else, but these are great predictors of how you're going to do if you buy into that system and do exactly what the other franchisees did, which is follow the system. That's why, in part, I call a good franchise a plug and play. You plug into the system and you follow its rules. Not as an employee, you're no longer an employee, you're an owner. But why in the world would you recreate the wheel when the franchisor has already made the wheel and it's already running smoothly?
Right. So you think that if he has good questions, he can predict or have a reasonable understanding of whether or not he can be successful or not. So this is gonna help him feel more confident. So knowing this, what are those key questions? I know we have many of them, but if we had to distill it down to 5 key questions that he would look at, what do you think they would be? Karen?
Well, we came up with a list and it's got 2 sections in it, and there's more than 5 questions in there, but and we can't go over all of them. There's like over 35, but the top 5 questions we thought we'd want to deal with here today, even though the rest of them are really valuable. And you can reach out and we'll make sure you get the full list. And it's a checklist, and make sure that you can go through and get as much of that done as possible so you can really figure out what's best for you. Every person is different, every franchisee is different, and they need to find the right team, the right system to be a part of so that they go to work every day excited. Yay.
Juicy. I like it. I love a list. I love a list. In fact, I use a list every single time we go through the research process, and we kind of check things off, because just like if you were a pilot, the pilot checks every single part of the plane every time before they take off. And he does that so that he can ensure he's going to have a safe flight. Well, this evaluation checklist is checking all the parts of the business before takeoff so that you can make sure that you have a safe and profitable business. So, Karen, what would you say the first item, the first most important thing would be on that evaluation checklist?
I think probably the business model of the franchise owner, the franchisee themselves. What are they saying that person should do, and how do they make money? It's pretty important to that person, to their family, and to the whole system. So, and is there enough room in the system to make the kind of money they're wanting to make? For instance, if this is a semi-passive opportunity where the owner doesn't have to be there all the time, there needs to be enough revenue to pay a manager to run the business day to day. So it's really important to find out what the day in the life of a franchisee is all about. And does it actually accomplish what that candidate wants it to?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that always surprises me is like some of the franchises, when you look at their business model, they don't really make that much money. And yet the people that are looking at them don't know what they're looking at. So they're not putting that two and two, one and two together. And I think that's, when you talk about the business model is showing them what are the products that they're selling, what are these revenue lines that are going to create the opportunity that the business is based on, and are those revenue lines realistic and sufficient to actually create the revenue that you're looking for. So
Yes.
Really important item is checking the business model.
Very important.
All right, let's see. Karen, do you want to talk about the second most important item?
To me, I think one of the things that you need to look at next is the retention rate of that franchise organization. The franchise will turn over. Even the biggest, most productive franchises are going to have people that have been with them a long time and decide it's time to retire. They want to go spend time with their grandchildren. And so the turnover rate isn't inherently negative or positive, but it can be affected by a lot of different factors, like the franchise system itself and its performance, and how the original agreement handles those renewal terms, and what happens when they expire. And is this a healthy or unhealthy franchise system? So there are several ways that these turnovers happen. One is a transfer, an acquisition by somebody. So they sell their franchise to somebody else. It's time to move on. It can be terminated either for cause or by mutual agreement by both parties. Maybe at the end of the term, somebody decides not to renew. That can happen. Sometimes if there is a problem, the franchisor will agree to reacquire just to resolve a dispute and avoid litigation. And then sometimes they cease operations. That can happen sometimes more with certain types of franchises, but it's pretty important to look at. And so one of the things that we do is look at that retention rate. Is it increasing or decreasing? And just the movement isn't good or bad. It's a reason to ask more questions. What happened last year? What's going on with those people in that area? Things like that. So it's an important key indicator.
It really is. So just curious, I'm throwing it out there. What's the worst one you've ever seen?
The worst
retention rate.
Retention rate. Oh.
Mine, the worst one I've seen is negative 27%. Amanda, what's the worst one you've seen?
The worst one that I have seen was, it was like 42%.
42%?
Yeah, but it was
right now I've got the winning one. How about you, Karen?
I think you've got the winning one. But then there, one of the turnover rates that I have seen was for a franchise that was, their whole process was to sell a franchise that people could use to enhance their own personal travel.
Mhm.
And so the people that went into business a lot of times did it more to support themselves. So after a while, they didn't work the business anymore and they just kind of let it go away. So it that kind of thing has a bad turnover rate, but not necessarily for bad reasons. So you need to ask those other questions.
Yeah, I definitely do. And the reason why I see a lot of them is because we have all the disclosures checked. So anytime a franchise comes in to, request to be in inventory, we actually look at their FDD and do the analysis to see if they're approved or not. And that's how I've seen such low numbers.
Yes.
So yeah, you do have to be careful because they're not all perfect and they're not all great. So what's the flip side? What's the best one you've seen? Best retention rate?
Best retention rate. I haven't looked at some of the ones that they're on their third generation of ownership. Those we all know have large signs and are in every neighborhood. So there's some of those. I think my idea of good retention is when the owners are happy,
Mm-hmm.
they are productive in their community. I had a friend in Nashville, Tennessee, who owned a large district of a fast food franchise. And he was very participatory in all kinds of things that happened in the community. He gave a lot of money to charity and he employed a lot of people. So to me, that even though he sold in a certain period of time because he wanted to go off and be with his grandchildren, he was very successful in all the different parts of the words. So, and I just want to say too, one of the things about being a franchise broker and being a part of a system like we are, having this information at our fingertips where we can go into the systems that the FBA has and immediately find this out, find those areas where it's just a little bit, okay, there's more questions to ask here. We can support our candidates so well. And so that makes a difference. It's not like you're out there just trying to figure out what's going on all on your own. We have our own team. So
yeah. Well, you're all heartwarming and sweet. And I'm like, what's the competition? I have 100. I've seen 100. How about you, Amanda? What's the highest one you've seen? 100% retention.
I have seen very rare to find 100%.
Yeah.
But I think what's still fresh in my mind was a very large system with over 400 units, and they had 97% retention rate.
that's impressive.
Yeah, that's a really good number. All right. Competition. I would say I won on the low end.
Oh, yes.
So, ping. All right. I'm going to pat myself on the back. And now, Eric, what do you think is on our evaluation checklist? What's the third most important item that you want to put on there?
Well, I have 3 items that would be the third most important.
All right.
Any investment I make, I want to know how much is it going to cost and how much money am I going to make, and whether there's a system in place. Okay. And if I can't answer those, I can't buy. And it's important to realize that in the FDD, there are certain disclosures that help you answer those questions. But again, it comes back to due diligence in the existing franchisee pool, due diligence with respect to the industry that you're getting into. Doesn't matter what the franchisor or the franchisee says. If it's the wrong industry for the wrong time, then there's going to be a problem on the horizon. So you need to do industry analysis. You need to do local market analysis. And then ultimately you have to answer the personal questions. And you know what those personal questions are. Are people buying this? Are people buying it in my community, in my market? Are they buying it in sufficient quantities that I can make a decent return on my investment? And is this service or product better than the competitors? And if you can answer all of those things in the positive, I don't care whether you're selling doggy daycare or whether you're selling accounting services or legal services like I do, it really doesn't matter. Those things should all be answered in the positive. And if they are, my question is, what are you waiting for, right? The benefit, again, one of the strong benefits of franchising is you can answer these questions. You should be able to answer these questions with relative consistency. And once you get those consistent answers, you can fairly safely assume that you will fit right in there, unless there's something wrong with you or you don't want to do what the other franchisees say they're doing. And again, I have to emphasize this. Some people are not cut out for franchising. They want to recreate the wheel. They want to, come up with their own ideas. And if you want to do that, that's fine. All right. Start your own business. Call me. We'll make you into a franchise. All right. But the beauty of franchising in part is, again, you plug into the system and you're not an employee anymore. You're a business owner, but you're following the system. I can't emphasize that enough. And that's part of what, of course, you look for in your due diligence.
Well, that was a lot more than one. So
Sorry.
I don't know if we got them all, but I appreciate you giving that, because there's a lot of great insights in there that we didn't even include. So thank you.
Sure.
So Amanda, how about a fourth item? I know it's probably more like the 10th or 11th item, but what would you say is the fourth?
So it is the obvious, which is market viability and territory restriction. So this is something that everybody thinks about when they're looking for a franchise. They send out the form, they let the franchise know that they're located in Texas in this particular zip code. And once the franchisor says, great, we're available here, then they start the process. But there's a lot of hidden, I would say hidden points that are not discussed. And it can either make you or break you, right? So when it comes to the size of the territory, when it comes to the actual demographics of your area, a franchisor will always make sure that they're doing their due diligence and identifying their top markets, their ideal locations that they would like to go in. But there's a lot of other things going on. Number one is that franchise already so saturated that they only have a few zip codes left. And if you are one of those zip codes, you're going to have a lot of competition within that same brand. And if your goal, just like Rob, is to transition from corporate America and really scale a business, and like Eric said, the no ceiling, right? The no ceiling, that's an advantage of being a business owner. Now you actually put a ceiling on yourself because you can only be in that zip code. And if you wanted to go and buy another location, or if you wanted to expand to your area, you don't have the ability to do so because there's already other franchisees in your market. So it's kind of combining the territory with the stages of growth of a franchise. So how big they are you looking, what are your goals, right? So if Rob was, I don't know, I'm just going to throw an example out there. He's 50 years old, right? So I'm pretty sure he still has a lot of years that he wants to invest into this business. He's probably going to be signing a 10-year agreement. So he has a lot to grow. And if he can only do it with one unit, that may not be the best opportunity unless that unit has a large enough territory that he can really grow. And you won't know that if you don't do your research. Number two, what's the competition like? No franchisor is going to tell you that. So even if you reach out to them and you say, I really like this brand, you know, what else is out here? The only thing you may be able to do is go to, I don't know, Google Maps and see what else is around. But in reality, what does that actually look like? Who are you competing against? Are you competing against individual businesses? Are you competing against other big franchises? Are those other big franchises, how well established are they? You know, what's their system like? So, you know, all of those things have to be taken into consideration. And when you're looking at the household income of your area, how fast it's growing, what's the population density, we actually have an entire step that we pull information and accurate data on all of those things. And that happens pretty early on. You don't have to wait until you actually get introduced to the brand. So that is definitely a plus, another plus of working with us.
Thank you. All right. Karen, do you want to give the fifth item on the checklist?
Sure. We talked a little bit about the franchisee's business system, but we also want to talk about the franchisor's business system, the corporate. And so what is their focus? What are they trying to accomplish? And is it done in a way that allows the individual units to become very profitable and help the system grow? Is the franchisor just selling things to the individual franchisees, or are they really set up to train and support and then do all the things with technology that it takes to keep people in touch with their clients, to make things? One of the most impressive things I've seen this past year is the franchises that really did the pivot with COVID, and they came up with entirely different ways of selling their services and their products, and ended up, I heard someone in June and somebody else in September that were meeting or beating their same week sales from the previous year before COVID. So to me, that makes a big difference. So another question to put in there, how did you cope with such a year? So
Hey, that's a lot of questions here.
Sorry about that.
No, it's really helpful. I mean, of course, we want you to have really good questions. So each one that we add is just a little bit more and a little bit more great insights that we want to be able to offer. And I think the business model of the franchise is one that gets often missed because people are not paying attention. They're focusing on just what they're going to be doing. And so they're not paying attention to what the franchise is going to be doing. And so what you need to realize is that you have to look at the money and how are they incentivized? Are they incentivized to help you grow your business more and more and more? And if they are, then your business they'll put the support and the infrastructure around that, growing your business more and more. If they're incentivized in other ways, like selling you, startup packages and selling you this and selling you that, then there can be, not always, but there can be a slippery slope with that where they get off track on the support because they're making more money selling the startup services. And I don't think it's intentional. It just kind of happens. And it's one of those slippery slopes where they're making more and they're doing better by bringing in new franchisees. And it turns into that kind of churn and burn. And that's not what we want for you. All right, Eric, you feel like it seems like you want to say something.
Oh, well, I mean, I just reviewed an FTD this morning, and you know, you say, because I know you, Sabrina, and you're pure at heart, that it's not intentional. Sometimes it is, right? And so we do need to keep an eye out. We don't like greed, all right, and we don't like greedy franchisors. And for our people that we are helping place into business, we want them successful, all right? Our future depends upon it. All right. We don't want people to run around saying, boy, that Eric Reese, he helped me get into a horrible business and now I've lost my money. Okay. That's not good for me. Right. And so, you know, humankind is humankind. And so there are those franchisors out there. The FDD I reviewed this morning required you to spend $50,000 a year on advertisement. Well, if I'm making $5 million a year, $50,000 isn't much. But based upon their item 19, meaning their financial performance representation, 50,000 was a lot, right? And franchisors get paid on gross. Franchisees get paid on net. And if you don't believe me, ask a McDonald's franchisee how the dollar menu is treating them, all right? You're going to get an earful. Be ready to sit down with them for a few hours because they're going to tell you how that dollar menu is treating them. They're losing their rear ends on that dollar menu, but franchisors get paid on gross. So again, to emphasize, it is important to have a number of folks who know what to look for, including those points of greed that you don't want to be associated with, because people with integrity, and I know that includes everybody on this webinar, people with integrity really want you to be successful and really depend upon your success for their continued profitability, their continued credibility. So keep that in mind.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's a really interesting and good tale. And you're right. You do always have to have full eyes open and go through the process so that you have that clear understanding. All right. Amanda, do you have anything else that you want to add or throw in there? Maybe one more item?
We've talked about a lot of things. It is day in the life, business model, market viability. There's a really important one, and I didn't want to give it out, but here it goes. How to understand the franchisor's document, which is the FDD. What is an FDD? How to fully understand it. We are not franchise lawyers, but this is why we have Eric. This is why we have resources in our company that we can introduce our candidates to. Eric can have a free hour consultation with all of our candidates to for them to understand what it is that they're about to read. It is a very big decision. And it's a scary document. I mean, these documents, they tend to go from 200 to 500 pages on average. And it is what you're going to be signing for 10 years. So a lot of people tend to get that and then they have no idea what to do and they freak out. And now I'm not sure where to go, what to do. Meanwhile, the franchisor is putting pressure on them to let's go through a review, but how can you go through a review if you have no idea what you're reading? So that's another step of the process that we take very, very seriously, and we make sure that you understand it even before you receive it.
That's a big one. That FTD is like the crystal ball that tells you what they have really done, who they are as a business. And we highly, highly recommend that you have that reviewed by a franchise attorney if you're going through the process. Not a business attorney, a franchise attorney. It's too specific for just a regular business attorney who doesn't know franchising. You have to know the problems, like what are the things that can go wrong, right? Well, I think that through this process, I think we're really going to help Rob here, because we know that he's going through this situation, that he's going to be looking for new work soon. We know that he's got that internal drive that knows he's capable of doing more, and he just hasn't acted on it yet. And we know that the cost of doing it wrong is something that's too great. So he really does have to do it right. So with this evaluation checklist, he's definitely on the right track to find the truth and the clarity about that franchise that he's interested in. So in this scenario, Rob, he works with the qualified team. That team helps him to ask really good questions, not only about the franchise, but also about himself and his market. And then with those questions, he can find a good franchise that matches what he's ultimately trying to get, which is a successful business. He wants the fruits of the successful business where he can take control of his life. He can take control of his time. He's able to build something great for himself and his family. And he's finally able to grow substantial wealth. And he just has this sense of fulfillment that he's become a professional business owner, and he knew he was capable of it. He's made smart investments, and he got a good franchise that was the vehicle to his success. He's making a difference in his life, in his family's life, and in his community. And that is the reality that we experience all the time. And it's the reality of franchising done well. And so there are a lot of pieces of this puzzle that have to come together and be examined through this investigation process. And we just want to make sure that as you're doing it, you're not skipping the most important parts along the way. And if you are aware of those things, then with the right tools and teams, you can be exceptional. And we just love that for you. So I'll go ahead and thank our panel tonight. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we appreciate all of you attending and sharing this time with us. I do want to let you know that we have a speed round coming up. So March 16th, mark your calendar. It's at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what we're going to be focusing on that speed round is helping highlight franchises and kind of the best parts of those franchises for people who are transitioning out of corporate America and into franchise ownership. So good brands that help with that transition and are kind of modeled to support that process. And I just want you to, I'll leave you with this, that we just want you to know to remember that we're here to help you find good franchises. And that means a good franchise for you and for your long-term success. And our brokers are expertly trained to help you find, vet, fund, and own a good franchise. And so we'd be happy to match you with one of these experts. So we hope to talk to you soon and that you contact us today. You can reach us at findinggoodfranchises.com. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we do have a question here. I'll go ahead and open it up. What's the date of the next session again? Oh, I think I just got that. It is the 16th of March at 5:30 Eastern Time. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. It was a pleasure having you tonight. Bye.
Thank you. See you.
Bye. Thanks.